Good Thursday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com mailbag podcast presented by Blue Water Climate Control. Be sure and check them out at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com or visit them on their Twitter page at blueh2o_climate or give them a call at 865-299-2290 for all your HVAC needs. Get that heating system checked out, get a good checkup and tune up on it before we get into the wintertime. And again, for any repair that you need, they're the place you need to talk to, the people you need to talk to. They'll take good care of you. They'll do it the right way. They've got all the financing you need. They're going to tell you exactly what you need. They're not going to tell you and sell you on something that you don't need because they're going to send a technician out to tell you exactly what you do need, not a salesperson. That's bluewaterclimatecontrol.com. With Austin Price and Rob Lewis, I'm Brent Hubbs. Guys, let's just jump right into this thing and get going. Or do you want to do Masters predictions first, AP? What do you want to do?
We'll save that for the end.
Okay, we'll save that for
Gotta
the
have a
end.
hook to save them to the end.
Is that right? Is that the hook? Everybody's bated breath wants to hear Austin's Masters prediction. I don't know if anybody has seen this or heard this, but Austin has played Augusta National. By the way, if you were to put that on our YouTube channel, we might be able to run a few more ads next month or for the next month. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, how many times do you watch that a day, Austin? How many times do you watch your video a day?
I don't watch it all that often.
Do you fall asleep to it at night, or how does that work?
Man, hindsight being what it is, I wish that me and you could have hired Brant Packer to follow him around for 18 and tape the whole thing, and we could have shown it.
Oh,
Maybe got Bob Kessing to narrate. To narrate.
Hello, friends from Augusta National Golf Club in Augusta, Georgia. It's the Masters.
All right, let's get
All right,
let's get into this. We'll get to your Masters prediction here at the end of the podcast. Let's jump right into the questions. We'll start with UT Vol fan 29. Why do you think Tennessee's had such problems finding a quarterback? Is it recruiting evaluation or a coaching issue? I think it's the fact that you've had different coaches at the quarterback position, at the offensive coordinator position. I don't think Jim Chaney would have taken, certainly not JT Shrout. I don't think he would have taken Brian Maurer as well. We know that he did not pursue Harrison Bailey very hard when he was at Georgia, and he inherited Jerry Garantano. So I think that it's a situation where, the previous staff had Michael Penix ready to go and Adrian Martinez ready to go, and this staff didn't take either one of those guys, much the same way Lane Kiffin didn't take Taj Boyd or Bryce Petty. It's a byproduct of the coaching transition, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a combination of all those things, that the poster asked about. I think it's evaluations. I think it's the coaching turnover. And to this point, really, when you think about it, Jim Chaney, his first quarterback that he will bring in is going to be Caden Salter. And, I think that's tough when you really look at, where they're at the quarterback position. The guy that's calling the plays hasn't really been able to bring in his own guy yet. Because most of the big time quarterbacks were committed a year ago when he took over. When Harrison was already committed here, they took a hard swing at Haynes King, and couldn't overcome the distance.
All right. Speaking of quarterbacks, we'll follow up with that with Pandemonium Reigns, knowing what Pruitt and Chaney should have seen with JG midway through last season. Why didn't they move heaven and earth to get a transfer or JUCO quarterback for this season so that Tennessee would have a proven quarterback?
That's a good question. Obviously, I think if the head coach had it to do over again, Brent, he'd probably sign multiple quarterbacks in every year. And, at some point you're going to hit on one, right? Like it's just kind of law of averages. I think, if you could do some things over, I think if he could do things over, I don't know about Penix because, I think at that point he was just kind of anti whatever Butch had committed, because he came in as the anti-Butch. Martinez, I think he would have still wanted to take him, but then that kind of got sideways. And then I think he would probably go back and make different decisions with his quarterbacks, especially the first couple that he took.
And Tennessee would have listened and would have entertained the thought of JT Daniels if JT Daniels was interested in Tennessee. Don't you think?
I can't imagine that they wouldn't have. I would think 100%.
I don't know how many quarterbacks were interested in Tennessee in terms of transfer, but I think if that had gotten serious or possibly gotten serious, that would happen. But he couldn't take any visits, and he wasn't gonna go to Tennessee without coming and seeing
And it
Tennessee.
just so happens, had he came here, he still wouldn't be playing anyway because he ain't playing at Georgia, and you can tell by the fact that
walk on.
Yeah, I mean they're playing a walk on, and then they went back to the kid that started against Arkansas that they benched when he got hurt, or when Thurston Howell III got hurt, this past weekend. They went back to him. So I mean, JT Daniels clearly not healthy yet.
Well, and here's the other thing I will say this, and JT Daniels may end up being a good player. I don't know if he gets healthy. Okay, most of the time, if a quarterback's transferring, he's transferring because he didn't win the job. Felipe Franks is an exception. He got hurt and got Wally Pipp. He lost the job because he was injured. Okay, and they weren't going to go back to him after Kyle Trask performed the way he did down the stretch. So that's why he moved on. But most of the time, when a guy transfers, the guy's generally lost his job. And while you want everybody to be Joe Burrow that you take as a transfer, unfortunately, more of them are like Keller Chris, Rob, than they are Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I mean, who's the big guy out there that they missed on? I mean, I have a hard time faulting, maybe I'm KJ Costello, light years ahead of.
He lost his job at Mississippi State,
JG.
right?
And you certainly would have taken Daniels, but I don't think they could have gotten him. Obviously he picked Georgia. So, and I also don't wonder if Jim didn't think he could fix Jarrett with another offseason to work with him. I don't know that. I think it's worth speculating about.
Well, he showed enough flashes last year. You go back to the Missouri game. He had a couple other moments where you're like, okay. But then he has these moments where you just left like pulling your hair out too. So, I mean, I don't disagree with what Rob's saying, that potentially another year, a second year in the same system was something that was in their mind, which was something we talked about and everybody talked about.
All right, 865 Vol wants to know, how hot is Pruitt's seat at this point? I don't think it's that warm. I think Jeremy Pruitt's going to be back as Tennessee's football coach next year. I've said that. That's not breaking news on the Mailbag podcast on Thursday morning. I've said that. I also said anything is possible because it's Tennessee, and we've seen that. But if you're asking me what I think is going to happen, I think Jeremy Pruitt's the head coach of Tennessee next year.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I lean to. Now, again, they can't be lifeless the last four. If they go and they're lifeless the last four and lose to Vanderbilt, then I think that all bets are off. And it's just simply because you can't lose 8 in a row and be, lose to, an Arkansas team that, while they're better, they're not that much better. Lose to Kentucky the way you lost to them, and then you lose to just an atrocious, god-awful Vanderbilt team. Just, kind of projecting and playing devil's advocate here. I think that all that could change. But I expect them, Coach Pruitt is publicly saying they've got to push it down the field. They've got to be more aggressive on offense. Let's face it, Tennessee should beat Vanderbilt. If they play aggressively, I think they will beat Vanderbilt handily. But if they continue to play offense the way they've played it, I think that plays into Vanderbilt's hands of being able to hang around. As far as the rest of the games, I mean, who knows? If you get the right kind of scheme and you match up well, you never know.
It's interesting, Rob, that Jeremy Pruitt has spoken. He said it on Volquest Wednesday night as well as Monday deal about, pushing the need and kind of a little bit of throwing it at Jim Chaney. I don't know if you want to say throwing him under the bus, but throwing it back on him that he needs to call better plays, essentially, is what the implication is. Seems kind of bizarre, but knowing Jim Chaney, unless Jim Chaney's just really changed his philosophy. We've always known him as a guy who wants to push it down the field, Rob, right?
I agree. Go back to Tyler Bray. Those are some terrible teams. Those are some fun offenses to watch, with Bray and the receivers.
Maybe it just means that Jim doesn't have any trust in his quarterback.
That was what I was getting ready to say.
Sorry.
It just looks to me like, there's just no trust there. You get beat by 31 against Alabama again. You run it 38 times compared to 23 passes. Maybe that's an exception. Clearly, they threw 8 passes in the first half at Arkansas. Yeah, I get it. Arkansas is not good at defending the run. But when you're averaging 4.5, 5 yards a carry like Tennessee was in that first half, that's what you're working for when you want to dial up the play action game and take some shots. And they never even did that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. UT Sportsman 16, does Pruitt need to make significant changes to his coaching and managing style to be successful at Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, I think he always has to kind of evolve. I thought he evolved a lot going from year one to year two. I'm not sure if the evolving has continued. But yeah, I think he's got to evolve. I think all his coaches have to evolve. His staff will likely evolve at the end of the year. I mean, it would be hard to think that they're going to roll out there with the same staff in 2021 unless the offense significantly changes. And I'm not saying that Jim Chaney's getting let go. I'm just saying somebody on the offensive staff likely would probably not be back. You look at whose contract's up. Will Friend's contract is up. T. Martin's contract is up. Brian Niedermeyer's contract is up. Those three are going to be on expiring deals. So, does any of those leave? What about Chris Winkie? He just, renewed his contract this past year. So he has 1 year left. Jay as well would have 1 year left. And then so would DA.
I mean, T would walk somewhere, crawl somewhere to be a, offensive coordinator and call the plays. I mean, that's
a lot of people, Rob, felt like he was destined to be the head coach at Tennessee State, being hired by former Vol and former teammate Mickey Allen. But with COVID hitting Tennessee State, I don't think TSU's making any kind of change.
Yeah, and for anybody in T's position, that's the next step up the ladder. I mean, if you want to be a head coach someday, I mean, you've got to go somewhere and run the offense, not just have a title.
Yeah, or you've got to go down a level and be a head coach.
Yeah,
and go be a head coach right out of the gate. Yeah. But I don't know. I think that's what T is looking for. You're exactly right. He
like
would
South
go
Alabama was always another job that was thought would come open this offseason, and obviously with his ties to Mobile, that one would make a lot of sense as well.
That certainly would.
And he's the lowest paid guy on the staff and your best recruiter. I mean, I get that maybe inside linebackers haven't been off the chain this year, but I mean, is it even close as far as people who've brought the guys in that he's brought in? Maybe Jay, when he gets some traction, I would think he's on that level. But
well, Needs had a really good first year. He was not nearly as effective in year two, but had more of an impact than most people think behind the scenes with kids, kind of being a secondary recruiter. But yeah, I mean, Niedermeyer's not going anywhere. I don't imagine. I would venture to say that he resigns to a new deal relatively soon.
All right. CL DeMarcus wants to know: has Pruitt lost the team?
I don't believe that.
I don't believe that either. Now, ask me after I see him play again. I mean, if they lay down, then maybe my feeling is different. But I don't believe that he has lost his team.
I thought they played their best 2 quarters of complementary offensive and defensive football at Arkansas. I mean, just the last time we saw them, and they crapped the bed the second half. But I mean, I don't think it was because Pruitt lost them in the 20 minutes at halftime.
No, I mean, I don't know what they're doing during the 20 minutes at halftime, but it's not working. Here's the other thing too: if you had lost your team, I think you would see opt-outs, because I think this is. I think that look.
Sure.
I mean, this
look
is
at Penn State. Look at Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you've lost your team, then guys are opting out on you. And we've not seen that at Tennessee, through this 4-game losing streak. All right, S. Pitball wants to know: a coaching change is a hot topic on the GQ this week. Most agree finances are a major deterrent to making a change, especially in 2020. Isn't it more expensive to allow Pruitt to make staff changes and then end up having to pay 3-year contract buyouts for those newly hired assistants if a change is made after next season?
I don't think anybody would let you do a 3-year deal unless it's a new coordinator, and even then, I think that might be a tough ask.
Yes, and I don't think if you have a new coordinator, I don't think you're going to pay a new coordinator $1.6 million a year on the offensive side of the ball. So
nope, I'm coming in for $750.
I mean, I just don't. To make changes, you're talking about somewhere around $15 to $16 million total
in a year where you're losing. What? Yeah. I mean, we don't even know what the final number is going to get to. 50 plus, I bet it's safe.
And my guess is, even if you make some staff changes, you're not going to be in a situation where your buyout a year from now is going to be $15 million, because things are, Pruitt's buyout's going to drop, and then obviously you would have Ansley, who would be in the final year of a deal. Chaney would be in the final year of a deal. I mean, you can figure out the financials there, that it's not going to be $15 million a year from now. Given where everybody's contract situations are. All right, let's go on to Vol since 1996. With the delay of this week's game, will they look into working Harrison more with the first team reps, or at least behind JG? Also, with the extra bye week, do you think that may help the odds to beat Auburn with Pruitt being familiar with Gus? Also, how bad is this team hurting without having Austin Pope? Would 2021 commit Hudson Wolf be the missing link in helping this Chaney offense as far as blocking and maybe get vertical down the field? All right, several questions to get there. Let's start with the first one. We know Jarrett Garantano is not practicing this week because he's in concussion protocol. He's still day to day, and he has not practiced for Tennessee, which means other quarterbacks are getting reps. I have to believe Harrison Bailey is getting the core of those reps with the first team based on where they think they are with JT Shrout and what they saw out of Brian Maurer. I'm not saying those other guys aren't getting reps, but don't you think Harrison Bailey is getting as much first team reps this week as he's gotten since he's been at Tennessee?
Yes, it's the Harrison Bailey show. They're if they go when they go to Auburn next week, fighting we get to see actually football next weekend. If it's not Jarrett Garantano, it will be Harrison Bailey, and there's no doubt in my mind. It will not be Brian Maurer, and it will not be JT Shrout.
Yeah, but I don't see how it could. I mean, you didn't take JT Shrout to Arkansas, and I think everybody saw everything they needed to see from Brian Maurer in those 3 or 4 series. And Harrison, I mean, he didn't light it up or anything, but it wasn't even close to me. And I know Arkansas was dropping 8 and whatnot, but it looked like you had something to work with.
I'll say this about Bailey. He did not. His mechanics are slow. His feet are not. They're not stellar. But he never looked like his head was spinning. Brent. He looked very calm out there. Whereas Brian Maurer, who's been in the system a year longer,
and has played and started
football in multiple games, looked like his head was on a swivel and eyes were going back and forth. I mean, it was two different kids out there.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't even know that Brian recognized down and distance at times. I mean, there's a couple third down plays where they're coming. I'm not trying to be mean, where they're coming off the field, and he's kind of looking like, "Why are we coming off the field?" It's like it's 4th and 9, dude. I mean, and I just don't think he. I think everything looked really fast, and he looked almost out of control out there running around, heaving the ball up. Whereas Harrison did not. Not that Harrison all of a sudden is like the guy, necessarily, but he certainly, to me, and I've said this all week long, to me, it's JG and Harrison Bailey. That's the 2 quarterbacks you have to work with if you're Tennessee. Extra days help Tennessee with Auburn.
I would think it has to.
Yeah, I mean, but I think Jeremy Pruitt's got a pretty good beat on Gus, whether he's got extra days or not extra days. I think the extra days are more beneficial to the younger guys that I think, you're trying to see if you can get them on the field some more. And maybe it's more beneficial to trying to find some solutions to some of your problems as opposed to getting a big jump start on Auburn, with a couple of days practice there. But, it doesn't hurt by any means.
Man, and going back 2 years ago, the day after Brant Packer prepared a delicious steak dinner, Austin, if you remember. I mean, that was a bad Tennessee football team and a pretty good Auburn team. And Jeremy, I mean, I think the proof was in the pudding that, he's got a pretty good handle on what Malzahn wants to do, and probably a better handle than he does with any other team in the league.
Yeah, I think so. I think he spent probably more time dissecting Gus's offense when he was working for Saban than he did anybody else's offense. Now, I think the challenge for this year's team with that is, will the guys execute what he's got? I mean, I think that was some of his frustration, when he was trying to recap the Arkansas game on Monday. Is you got the sense, Austin, that he felt like he had the right call on multiple times and guys didn't execute it from a technique standpoint, or they just had a flat out bust out there.
Yeah, and talking to a couple of people, that they had the right call, repped this numerous times in practice, and then it just didn't translate to the game. So,
well, I think in particular, I mean, those 2 big pass plays, I think for sure were just individual.
I think that's when you go back to, and I know they're 6 games into the season, so to me, the excuse is not the same as it would be if it was game 1 or game 2. But I think this defense continually misses Nigel Warrior, misses Daniel Batuli, and misses Darrell Taylor.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. And offensively, as he asked the question here, I do think they miss Austin Pope.
Oh, big time. I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, I don't know how to answer the Hudson Wolf thing since he's not stepped foot on campus yet. But yeah, I mean, and this is no offense to either one of those kids, but what have Jacob Warren or Princeton Fant done? And I mean, I don't think they are great in the run game, and they certainly haven't, made any plays in the passing game. I think Austin Pope, I mean, it's not necessarily under the radar. I think a lot of people are talking about it, but yeah, I think that's significant.
And we'll see it. We'll see how Hudson Wolf is when he gets here. I mean, when he arrives, he's missed a year, Austin, right? He's had the injury and had the surgery. Where's he at from a physicality? I don't know how vertical he gets in the passing game for him, but they need a guy who can be a combination inline blocker who could also be somewhat of a factor in the passing game, whether he's a dump down guy or you get a matchup that you like that you can get for a few yards here and there. I don't know that he's going to be a guy that stretches the field 40, 50 yards down the field, but he's got to be a guy who's a weapon.
Yeah, he can't. I mean, he doesn't need to be Travis Kelce, but you've got to have the tight end be a part of your offense.
Yeah, I agree.
Luke Stock or Michael Rivera, somebody just adequate, competent.
George Kittle, Gronk.
Music City Ball wants to know, when Chaney was originally hired, did he say that after his 3-year contract was up, he for sure wants to retire? Was his hiring always just going to be a 3-year deal, or do you know if he was open to an extension if the direction of the offense went well with him? In relation to question number 1, how is the staff crafting the recruiting message to key 22 offensive recruits such as Ty Simpson right now regarding who will be the OC in 22 and beyond, and what the offensive scheme will look like? Ty and his dad have to be wondering if Chaney's going to be the OC or if there's a plan to replace Chaney because he was going to retire after 3 years. I don't think Jim Chaney came in and said, I'm absolutely done in 3 years. I don't think that was ever the case. I don't think that was what he told somebody. Hey, I'll work for 3 years for you and I'm going to be done. Now, I'm not sure what he wants to do after 3 years. And I think part of it depends on the direction of offense and the quarterback that he has, Austin.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more fun when, you have toys to work with, and you got a guy that you're coaching that is making big plays and there's excitement around your offense. I don't know how much juice you have coming into work when, you feel like maybe you're handcuffed in a lot of ways.
Yeah. All right. What about the second part of that question in terms of Ty Simpson and the messaging to recruits?
Well, I mean, much like Joe Paterno always said, I'm going to go 4 more years. That way they couldn't use against him in recruiting. I mean, I don't think Jim Chaney's saying, yeah, I'm out after next year. I mean, I think that, Jim Chaney recruits Ty Simpson as if he's going to be here. So does Chris Winkie. So does, the entire staff.
And AP, I know you've said this before on the podcast, but break it for those who are not going to want to hear it. How does Ty Simpson feel about Chris Winkie?
Loves him. Loves him.
Yep, they're
close with him as anybody.
Yep, they certainly have a good relationship. No doubt.
He's tight. Well, he's really tight with Winkie and Pruitt, and he's tight with Chaney too. But I think Winkie and Pruitt are the two he's tight with most. And I think they've made him such a priority that's big for Ty. He wants to feel like he's the guy, and he's definitely Tennessee's guy, and he knows it.
Which is why his relationship with Pruitt is so strong compared to probably some other relationships with head coaches out there, right?
Correct. And, to be honest, he was going to be here this weekend. He's planning on coming to the final 2 home games. He's been to he did not come to the Missouri game, but he was here for the other 2,
right?
Both Kentucky and Alabama. And he's planning on being here for the A&M and Florida game. So Tennessee's in a good spot there. It's not done. Everybody's going, it's done. It's not done, but Tennessee is in a really good spot with Ty Simpson. And to the point now where I don't even know if Clemson's Tennessee's biggest competition anymore. I think it may be.
Maybe who?
Maybe Alabama.
Alabama. Okay.
That'd be even worse for Vol fans.
Yeah, that wouldn't be painful. All right. Titus wants to know, every game we still do not know who to block on run plays. Why is Chaney calling plays they don't know or practice? All players are confused. Is Friend on I'm not sure what the last part of that is. So anyway, let's get to the first part of that. Obviously he's just mad. I'm not really sure what he's asking. Why does Tennessee, I don't know how many busts they have in the run game. I think sometimes they get beat, but I don't know how many times they just turn somebody loose. I mean, they ran they didn't have any trouble running the football against Arkansas.
135 yards in the first half.
Or sometimes guys pull, or the fans don't know the responsibility of the lineman and who they're supposed to block. I mean, like that goes along a lot of times, because there's been numerous times where I watch a play over the years, and Lord knows I don't know football like a lot of other people do, but I'll watch a play and I'll go, oh, that was a bad play by him. And then when I talk to said coach and I say, hey, what about this play? And they're like, nope, he was supposed to block that guy. What you think is the right person to block doesn't mean that that's actually the right person to block. So a lot of it's scheme and in particular what each individual lineman is supposed to do on a play.
All right, let's go to Apple Orange. With the game canceled this Saturday, could the team practice or scrimmage if they wanted to?
Yes.
20-hour rule, right? As long as they're under the 20-hour rule.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it'll be interesting to see what Pruitt does with his team this weekend. Is he going to let him go home? Is he going to keep him around? What is he going to do here? I think that's going to be interesting.
I think he's going to call Kirby and see if they can line up that a rematch with Georgia.
Play Ohio State. They can play Ohio State.
No, you got to stay in conference, Rob. Can't play one out of conference. Line it up. Let's have an exhibition game in Neyland Stadium against Georgia.
I'm neither confirming or denying that a call was made to the SEC about a possible rematch between the Vols and Dogs.
Oh, my word. I will say this as far as letting kids go home. I talked to a coach on campus this weekend. I don't think they let him go home. And I was talking with somebody on campus this weekend who thinks that he's not coming up with this on his own. He's talked with a lot of people around the country. He thinks that everything we're seeing this week with college teams is a result of Halloween weekend parties, social distancing being thrown out the window, and now 8 to 10 days later the chickens have come home to roost.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt
about that. It's
all
your kid's fault, Rob. He's a freshman over there at UT. He added into the Halloween madness.
I'm sure he was in the middle of some COVID soup. There's no question.
Wish it was 98 wants to know, does it not seem unusual to any of you guys that we're almost 7 weeks into the season and they still act like Harrison Bailey is so unprepared? I do not expect him to fully understand a complex offense, but Pruitt's words and actions suggest he can barely operate a simple one. We have watched team after team throw a freshman into action 2 to 4 weeks into a season without it being a total disaster. Even if you ignore the lack of spring and fall camp, it's beginning to seem like a failure of preparation on the staff's part. Or am I wrong?
You're wrong. I don't know. I mean, I understand how he feels. Listen, I mean, don't you think like the inner part of Hubs and Rob and I, I'm a big skill guy. So like when there's freshman wide receivers, I always want them to play. And I think that's natural. When you're a fan, you want to see that quarterback play, that 5-star quarterback play. So like he came in with the weight of the world on his shoulders. Everybody expected him to play out of the get-go. Then everybody was understanding of the fact that they missed spring, missed part of fall camp due to contact tracing and stuff. But then when Tennessee's not been very good at quarterback, everybody's like, okay, enough, put him in there. So that nobody can grasp it. And I mean, I get it. I understand the frustration.
But also, and I know you get this too, AP. No spring practice, no fall practice for him. Virtually no fall practice because of contract tracing. By the time he's out on the practice field regularly, they're getting ready for South Carolina. They're getting ready for Missouri's defense. It's not all about this is our offense. This is what you do, A, B, and C. I think people really underestimate the impact of not just being out there when it's basic fundamentals.
And to me, and learning, Brent, how to run the show. Like going out there and calling a play in the huddle with authority, calling your cadence with authority, little things like that I'm not sure he does. Having talked to some people, they want him to be more assertive. Let's see if he does that. He's got basically a week and a half more to prepare to potentially be the starter heading to Auburn.
Well, they totally missed the boat on not getting him on the field at the end of the Missouri game, at the end of the Georgia game, and in the Alabama game. Okay.
Should have given him the whole second half.
Should have given the whole second half. Should have got him on the field earlier. One series into the game the other night with Brian Maurer, and you knew that wasn't going to end very well. They missed opportunities to get him on the field, which would have helped with some of those things, not just understanding the offense, but managing the offense. There's no question about that. So that's where I fault the coaching staff in the preparation of Harrison Bailey. They did not take advantage of the opportunities when they presented himself to play a backup quarterback. And I would have played Bailey because you already knew what you had in JT Shrout and Brian Maurer because you played with them a year ago and they've been on your campus over a year. So you knew who those guys were. All right, a couple questions, and then we're out the door here to get going. SEC Beast wants to know, in Pruitt's first year, it felt like we were hyper aggressive on defense. Pressure was coming from everywhere. Heck, if you look at onside kicks, I would say we're aggressive in special teams too. Rewind this past week to Arkansas, and it felt like in the third quarter we were running a vanilla and soft defense. That's up to the point where Maurer had all the 3 and outs. Then magically the defensive line stopped playing well. What I guess was just a gap, contain, control, and went after the quarterback. Saw a little help from Thompson and others. For a coach that says he wants to play aggressive and be multiple on defense, why did it feel like I was watching Third and Chavis in the third quarter? Our defensive players are mostly the same, are better than last year, so I'm not buying its players. Question, is the soft coverage and giving up the underneath stuff Ansley's philosophy? Why in the world did we wait until the game was lost to start to pressure Felipe Franks?
I would say I think it is players. Lost the first team All SEC safety. You definitely didn't replace him with a first team All SEC safety. You lost a second round NFL draft pick at defensive end. You did not replace him with anything like that. And does anybody think you're getting the level play at Daniel Batuli's spot that you got last year?
No.
No, I don't.
And Alante was out. The one guy you replaced, Nigel with was Jalen McCullough, and he's got a toe that's causing him to be even slower. And then Schamberger, who's in parts unknown now, is he's been a total bust the entire year, and they've not got anything from that nickel spot.
Yeah, though they have not.
Where they got stuff a year ago from the nickel spot.
Yes, they have.
How much stuff was Nigel cleaning up and taking care of last year that allowed Jeremy to get exotic, in the front seven? That just ain't happening now.
No, and no question. And again, you had Darrell Taylor, who people had to worry about. I will say this: in the fourth quarter, they did get aggressive. I mean, they started bringing safety blitzes. They started bringing corner blitzes. I mean, they did some stuff in the fourth quarter that you did not see them do in that third quarter when they had a 13-0 lead. But I think they were probably trying to get aggressive on a couple of those deep throws. I think they blitzed Austin on at least one of those deep throws for a touchdown, if not both of them.
George didn't have any
and
safety
they didn't
help.
get there.
The one to the right side, George did not have safety help for sure.
Yeah,
Correct.
if he did, it was going to be in the it was going to be in the inside. He didn't have any on the outside. I mean, if you forced him inside, maybe there was supposed to be safety help there, but he didn't have anything letting him get outside of him. That's for sure. All right, last 2 questions, and we're out the gate here. Do you feel like what's going on with the coaching staff? Do you think Pruitt micromanaging is a big difference in a better coaching environment? In other words, he's asking, do you think that Pruitt's micromanaging is hurting this coaching staff? What do you feel like's going on within the coaching staff?
I think that the office. I think the office hours weighs on some of those guys. But I mean, like that. I don't know why it should. I mean, they all know what it's going to be before they get here. I mean, like when Jay Graham came from Texas A&M to Tennessee, he knew exactly what he was getting into because he just worked in that environment at Texas A&M and did so at Florida State under Jimbo. Because that when you're coming from the Nick tree, you work, and then work some more. But I mean, I think that some probably don't necessarily, gel that way or, can grind that way. And there's something to miss there. Obviously, Jeremy's been pretty vocal about the fact that Jim's been too vanilla. I'm not sure the development's been there at all positions. And so.
And I'll say this from a micromanagement standpoint. Maybe there's more micromanagement on game day, but on the practice field, I think Coach Pruitt's probably micromanaging less, particularly on defense, because he's working with the defensive line exclusively. Yeah, I think Derek Ansley's had the secondary all to himself for a month, right?
Yeah, I mean he's had the corners and safeties. Normally Pruitt's with the corners, Ansley's with the safeties. Then he had Shearer and Rocker this year. I think early, when he first come back to campus, he was working a lot with the linebackers, trying to bring Niedermeyer along as he, begins his role as a defensive assistant and linebacker. And then all of a sudden he shifts into being the defensive line coach once he fired Jimmy.
Yeah, certainly did. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Blue Water Climate Control Volquest.com mailbag podcast. But as we get out the door, we got just a couple of minutes left here. Again, check out our friends at BlueWaterClimateControl.com. Austin Price. Hello, friends. The world is yours.
I'm going to take Dustin Johnson.
Wow, that's going out on a limb.
Fourth Masters
Yeah.
tournament.
Way to go.
8.5 to 1, the second highest favorite in the field.
He's also had top tens in every year since 2015, Rob. So when you couple that with the fact that DJ is staying in a rancher-style house and won't slip down a flight of stairs this year as the favorite, I'll take him to beat Justin Rose by one shot come Sunday afternoon, finishing at 7 under.
AB, I hope you're right, because I got Justin Rose to finish in the top 5.
So Dustin Johnson and Justin Rose. Does Tiger Woods make the cut? Yes or no?
No.
Yes, he does. He does make the cut. And if you don't know the words to the Loggins song here, the David Loggins music, I
Don't
really
sing.
urge you to
Really
look
don't
those
sing.
up.
We really
I'm not
urge
gonna
you not
sing.
to sing, okay? That's
Rory
what-
McIlroy.
Hey,
I
I do like
heard-
Roy. I said Roy was my number 2 pick. He plays really good on soft golf courses, and we'll see if they turn the sub air on much this week.
I got it from a good
Soft.
source today that he, before the rain came down, he made 4 straight birdies on the front 9.
Ooh, inside source, Rob Lewis.
Throwing darts in there.
At Augusta National. That's going to do it for this podcast. There you go. Enjoy the Masters. Enjoy what little bit of college football we can find this weekend. That's going to do it for this podcast. For Austin Price and Rob Lewis, I'm Brent Hobbs. Have a great Thursday, everybody.